We are continuing with the teachings of Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj from the book I Am That. A man once came to Nisargadatta Maharaj and told him that he taught Hatha Yoga in Mexico and in United States. And he told Maharaj that he learned it from an Indian teacher, and this yoga, Hatha Yoga, brought him a lot of physical health benefits and well-being. So Maharaj asks him, but are you at peace? Have you found what you were looking for? And he says no. So Maharaj digs deep into this conditioning. Maharaj asks him, what do you mean by yoga? To which this man says, the whole teaching of India, evolution, reincarnation, karma, and so on. Maharaj says, did it bring you peace of mind? Is your search over? And he says, no, not yet. So Maharaj says, naturally, there will be no end to it because there is no such thing as peace of mind. Mind means disturbance. Restlessness itself is mind. Yoga is not an attribute of the mind, nor is it a state of mind. So Maharaj here is saying that the mind, and he's talking about the fragmented mind, the mind that believes in its limitation, identification with thoughts and the body, as I am this, I am that, I belong to this, I belong to that, race, religion, culture, profession. All of these are limitations. This mind does not know peace. This mind by nature is restless. And he further says, Maharaj, examine closely and you will see that the mind is seething with thoughts. It may go blank occasionally, but it does it for a time and reverts to its usual restlessness. A becalmed mind is not a peaceful mind. We can train this mind, it's quite malleable. We can teach it to be quiet for a few minutes in a day through exercises, through yoga, meditation, or any other breathing technique or anything else. But the fundamental restlessness, irritation will always remain because the nature of this mind has never been explored. The flow that happens in life as I am this, I am that, I belong to this, I belong to that, all these identifications which creates binding, and binding creates suffering. These have not been explored. So, most of us go for band-aid type of solution. It works for a short while to cover the wound, to heal the wound, but the deeper inner wound is still there. So the mind, this mind, which is by nature restlessness, is being taught to be calm through movement. So this identification that I must do something, I must meditate longer, I should meditate more intensely, and then I will achieve some state which will permanently abide. This is the misconception. Because all states are conceptions of this mind, which is by nature movement or restlessness. So restlessness cannot know stillness in that sense. So he says that You can make it go blank occasionally, but it will come up again. And I think this has been experienced by most of us. We teach our mind to remain still for a couple of minutes during the day, but when we go about our usual business, when we meet people, when we go out into the world, again, all the restlessness comes back. And then we say that, I'm not at peace, what should I do? So Maharaj says, the peace you claim to have found is very brittle. He's talking about the peace that we experience intermittently. Any little thing can crack it. What you call peace is only absence of disturbance. It is hardly worth the name. The real peace cannot be disturbed. Can you claim a peace of mind that is unassailable? So the questioner says, I'm still striving. That means I'm trying. And Maharaj says striving is also a form of restlessness. So finally Maharaj says, the self does not need to be put to rest. It is peace itself, not at peace. Only the mind is restless. All it knows is restlessness, with its many modes and grades. The pleasant are considered superior and painful are discounted. What we call progress is merely a change over from the unpleasant to the pleasant. But changes by themselves cannot bring us to the changeless. For whatever has a beginning must have an end. The real does not begin. It only reveals itself as beginningless and endless, all-pervading, all-powerful, immovable, prime mover, timelessly changeless. So here what Maharaj means by the self is the I thought. And he says that its movement, I am this, I am that, which he refers to as the mind, or which I also call as the separate self, is restless. And, we are trying to cling to moments of pleasure, and we are thinking that is happiness, that is peace. Something that can be attained will always be lost. So peace that is attained will also be lost. That is what Maharaj's assertion is. Maharaj says that which I'm talking about is not at peace, it is peace itself. Because it is immovable that makes the movement of everything happens. It is timeless, it is changeless. Maharaj says, through yoga, you have accumulated knowledge and experience. This cannot be denied. But of what use is it all to you? Yoga means union, joining. What have you reunited, rejoined? Maharaj is giving a very subtle pointer here. He's saying that the personality, the Vyakti, is the product of the imagination. And the Vyakta, which he calls as the separate self, is the victim of that imagination. But you see, they are not two. Because separation leads to the creation of personality. To create personality, you have to identify with the separation. And then that personality further perpetuates more and more separation. And you see, this is a never-ending cycle that goes on infinitely, which is suffering. So in essence, the personality and the separate self, they are not two, they are the same. And this is so brilliant because even Jittu Krishnamurti, in his talks, he says, Sir, you are the anger. You are the jealousy. You are the envy. You're not separate from it. And what he's referring to is that this you, the separate self, the small self, are not separate from all of these things. You're trying to cut these things off. You think you will become better, you will become more worthy, you will have a high self-esteem. You will cure your quote-unquote brokenness. Once you do this, do that. But in all of this doing, your mind is becoming even more and more restless. Now you do experience moments of peace in between here and there, and then you mistake it for happiness. You think that it is all solved. Now I'm perfect. Now there's nothing wrong with me. But that is not the case, because as soon as again something triggering comes up, this whole thing starts moving. The separation creates the personality. And the personality perpetuates the suffering. How? Because you see, the personality can even go to an extent where the separation is so much that what in modern psychology we call personality disorder, which is nothing but total unconsciousness and total separation, total ignorance. Ignorance of what one's true nature is, complete belief in one's limitation. So this personality disorder is a victim of his or her imagination. That is how it perpetuates suffering. It is constantly imagining, which is part of the personality, and then it is also the victim, it is also the one that is suffering out of that imagination. So that is why when I talk of awakening, I say that it is a crack in the structure of the personality. So anything that cracks the personality is going to hurt and pain a lot in the beginning. Now, there are few people who can just get it. This is what Ramana Maharishi says there, that for some it's just hearing the words is enough and they understand. But they are few, and honestly I haven't met anyone in my life like that. But I have met a lot of people. I myself have gone through this process where the crack in the structure was very painful. But it led to insight. I do not say awakening or a person being awakened, because there is no person. There is nobody to awaken. But there is simply awakening. That is what Maharaj is here talking about, which he calls as avyakta, the one which is beyond the separate self and the personality. The vyakti and the vyakta, it is beyond, and it is called avyakta, the unmanifest. And he says that our suffering is because we are bound to the idea of our limitation. We take ourselves for what we are not. Once we understand, which is a matter of recognition, not a process of intellectual contemplation, which has to be arrived through debates, discussions, or constant thought stream. Although all those things may happen, but ultimately it's a matter of recognition. So it is not that the person becomes peaceful. There is no person. But peace happens. There is simply peace. There is no one at peace. That's the assertion here. So what we are doing is, we are trying to train the mind to become peaceful, which is futile. Instead, let the self-inquiry happen, where the mind questions its own nature and comes to the conclusion of its unreality. Because you see, this fragmented mind is unstable mind. It is identified with so many things. I am this, I am that, which Maharaj says is not the truth. But I, the thought I, in all its purity, is the eternal self, which is peace. It is not at peace. So when this recognition happens, all these activities like meditation, yoga can happen, but it is understood that the one who was thinking that they were disjoined from the eternal reality was a part of the dream itself. There was no one, no separate self, no person, no personality that was separate from consciousness that you are, from the peace that you are. So in that way, I can say that yoga is what you truly are. It is your true nature. And that is peace. So there is nothing to be rejoined because nothing was ever broken. You are not broken. You are not unworthy. You are not unwhole. Your nature is wholeness, completeness. All the brokenness and its manifestations are a part of illusion, the dream, in the dream of separation, the dream of appearances. You are the noumenon. You are the undivided. And Maharaj says here, I will read Maharaj's word to conclude. He says, even to talk of reuniting the person with the self is not right, because there is no person, only a mental picture given a false reality by conviction. Nothing was divided, and there is nothing to unite. So you already are the union that you seek. The suffering, the restlessness is happening because you're finding the best methods. You're finding ways, you're finding tips, tricks to achieve that wholeness, to become something. In this whole process of becoming, unbecoming, I must be like that, I must be like this, which is all born out of comparison. It is all born out of ignorance. You're just adding more load to this mind, which is already loaded. So if you stay still, completely still, and allow all of this to happen, what you will see is that this is all arising in a space which is vast, which has no beginning, which has no end. And it does not depend on time. It is always there. Once there is recognition of that, then this switch of perception happens. The content still will arise. The person still will arise as a part of the dream. Because this is the waking dream. This is the life, and life has to be lived. So the person will emerge as a part of the story, as a character on the screen. But it is recognized that it is a character on the screen. It is just playing its part like other characters. Your nature is the screen, which is completely unaffected by what is going on. So, in that sense, mind is by nature restless, but you are not the mind. You are by nature peace.